Hey everybody, I know I'm a little late to the party, but tonight I saw The Post, which is a Steven Spielberg movie starring Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep. I'm not sure on everybody else and some of the other characters, but if you're in the comedic actors playing serious, there's David Cross, actually wearing some kind of a newly hairdo because he's normally looks like this. And if you watch Silicon Valley, forget the character's name, but the guy who's sort of like the paperwork guy, Zach Woods, he actually has about 5 minutes as one of the lawyers. This is a movie, basically, it's historical fact. I never heard about this one. I have seen other movies, though, talk about, the U.S. government involvement in or the cover-up of the Vietnam War, their involvement, that kind of thing. That's what this movie is about. Back in 1971, there were some people, some journalists that did work with the U.S. government at the time. Supposedly this is a big historic event. Now, if you're a history buff, you're going to love this movie. If you like movies about newspapers, freedom of the press, we should be able to get the word out. Don't let the government cover up stuff, that kind of thing. This is a movie for you. If you're a millennial or somebody that's not born in 1970 something, this is not a movie for you. Even I took my mother along. We were doing a belated Valentine's Day thing. She doesn't get out much, so let's go see a movie, let's go for dinner. Let's say it this way, our dinner was way better than the movie. She didn't enjoy it at all either, even though she thought, oh, Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, they're usually, good in acting movies. This was a bit of a drag. If you're new here, don't forget, hit subscribe, hit the notifications, because I do post on a weekly basis. So this is actually, and slight spoiler, this movie actually, slight history spoiler. This movie takes place a little bit of time just before the big Watergate fiasco that Nixon did. So Nixon is in power. But these government papers that were found include, I think, before JFK himself, and I think it was Johnson. I think it was Johnson before. I'm not a history buff either, or up on my American presidents being Canadian. I don't even know who our previous Canadian guys are sometimes. What had happened was that somebody was working, and they thought, like, yeah, all this crap's going on with the war and stuff like that. We got to get this word out. So somebody grabbed a bunch of top secret documents, photocopied them. It took them a long time. There's one scene where you got the guy with a room full of documents, and I think the way it went, that the New York Times, they get some of this information. They were going to put it out. The president heard about it. They were going to be shut down for 3 days, and then they were going to go to the Supreme Court about this. The main focus is actually about the Washington Post. Meryl Streep plays the owner. This is not really a fascinating movie. Like I said, if you're a history buff, you want to see some 70s retro, you want to see how they used to make newspapers. If you heard your grandfather, like, yeah, we used to read newspapers all the time. You kids and your social media and your iPads and your tweeters and your twatters. This is fascinating stuff. Or if you want to see how newspapers were put out, there's actually a scene even where they're what they used to call cold type. They actually, like we're typing now on the screen, and you get it out, you can print it, you can fax it, you can tweet stuff nowadays. Back then, the only thing other than, the 4 TV channels, paper, printed out, that's how people got their media these days. Nowadays, everybody's like, I got my media. Somebody did mention, I watched in one review, that this is a statement about the way the state. This is, I think, the reason this really came out of Spielberg. Just was maybe it was an interesting subject. Maybe he's a big history buff, but it also reflects today's news of, the orange monkey in power right now, and fake news and Fox News, and we don't like this, we don't like that, and all this other stuff. This is what it's about. This is the underlying thing, is that the system cannot shut down the freedom of the press, the First Amendment. That's the underlying thing. My recommendation is, if you want to see a half-decent movie, and if you are into, like, historical things, see how things do, or just like an intrigue movie about the power of the press, that kind of thing, watch the Paper with Michael Keaton and Glenn Close. I mean, it's not for everybody either. I saw a bit of it once, but that had a lot of intrigue. It's an interesting story. Like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna print this? And the same thing happens in this movie too. Are we going to print this article? Are we going to tell the world, like, that the U.S. government, was dickering around with Vietnam and all these other, secret things going on? Do we tell that? Because we'll all get indicted. We all could go to jail. Or And then, like, part of the punchline of the movie is too that all the newspapers decided to stand up with the Washington Post. Like, yeah, screw the president. But getting there was just so. Of course, we saw it for the matinee on a Thursday, so you're not going to see a lot of people in this theater. And it's almost at the end of its life. I think tomorrow, Black Panther's coming out. So a lot of these movies, and this movie's been out like since January. But we wanted to go see something. My mother's not a big action film, so that was the only reason we had to go see it. I wouldn't go see it myself. My BFF, though, he's a big history buff. He dragged me to JFK. And back in the 90s, a lot of British political type intrigue stuff that I also was like. I do like intriguing stuff. And this was an interesting thing. Like, oh my God, the government was doing this massive cover-up. But there has been other movies I saw growing up. There was one, I think, with Burt Lancaster again. Not for the millennials, but it was about a guy took over a missile silo saying, like, did you know how many thousands of soldiers were killed in the Vietnam War, and the Vietnam War was totally useless. So that was sort of an interesting movie saying, you know, we don't like something, we have to take drastic measures. And I think that was sort of the back push of that too, not just the paper against the state, but, you know, we got to get the word out. The way I'm talking to you right now, I'm talking to you more excited than the way the movie was, even though Tom Hanks said, oh, we got to get this paper out, and, you know, we have to do this, or... And Meryl Streep was kind of like, well, I don't know, and maybe, and let's do it. A big pass. If you're, like I said, if you're into historical fiction, historical facts in a fictionalized form, that kind of thing, wait to stream it. Like I said, if you're a history buff, if you want to, the costuming and everything was great for the 70s, but yeah, that's all I would take away from it. It's a good history movie, sort of quote from them, saying that this is the kind of movie you would see in school. You know, kids, remember Richard Nixon? Remember your father talking about, actually probably grandfather, but most people these days, talking about, Tricky Dick back in the 70s. Well, here's a movie about him, and, you know, what happened with, the newspaper and the state kind of thing. But yeah, that's all you can really take away from it. Other than that, not a great movie. You want to see an interesting movie about real life facts? Molly's Game. I'll post a link here. That was a good movie to go see. That movie kind of moved. Talking about, celebrity poker games, and backroom stuff. This was a lot of backroom dealing too, but it's just like, oh. They just give this a total pass. I know it's already out of theaters, but if it ever pops up and you're going through your menu and say, wonder what the poster's like. Oh, Tom Hanks. I like Tom Hanks. I liked him in, Bridge of Spies and, Castaway, and, if you're far enough back, oh yeah, wasn't he in, in these Road to Perdition? Yeah, there's a good, but when Tom Hanks did serious movies, Meryl Streep, oh yeah, Devil Wears Prada, Julia and Julia, was it Julie and Julia? She was good in that, but this, no, definitely, like I said, the paper. Never saw the Spotlight, but I'm not big on newspaper things about the Catholic Church. Again, it's political stuff. So, but those sounded like more intriguing movies. Maybe again too, they were hyping it up more. This was just like if you were actually there at the time, watch these events going on. That's what the paper is. You're basically sitting there with everybody. Oh, this is very interesting. Yes. Oh, yeah. Has everybody else seen it? Is anybody a big history buff? So some people like to see historical intrigue or find out what the government's been hiding from us. About sticking it to the man and all those analogies of back in the day. Then definitely watch this movie. But if not, yeah, go see Black Panther tomorrow. That's my recommendation right there. And as always, did you like my video? Did you not like my video? Don't forget, hit subscribe, hit the notifications button because I do post on a regular basis. And as always, see you in the next one.